Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hoof Podcast on this beautiful Thursday evening. Sterling, welcome to the show. Anthony had a little surgery or something, so I told him you don't need eyes. I think he had some operation on his eye. You don't need eyes to talk, right? Turn your screen off. You can still join us.
Man, the fact that Anthony is down an eye right now is quite hilarious. He doesn't use them anyways because he's so effing wired.
Mm, yes.
So he's high octane all the time,
Yeah,
man.
he's all
So
mouth and all ears, right?
yeah. So no, I mean, you get a little different flavor in here, but Anthony is missed, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, this time of year, there's nothing that really gets Anthony riled up, right? So, it's good for in the season. You miss him, especially after a Bills loss, right?
Oh yeah.
Great to have him then. But this time of year, I got everything I need out of him the last few weeks.
He's dead to
But
me.
yeah. All right, but yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I mean, it's been a while. I don't think we've discussed any football. Back to what pre-draft. So interested to get your thoughts on kind of the Bills roster, where we are. Got a couple things about what the Bills offense, what they might be doing. There's just a lot of speculation out there. Joe Brady came out and said, as long as you have Josh Allen, you're going to be competitive. I believe that, but I have a couple concerns about are we going back to relying on Josh Allen for every single thing? And we'll discuss that a little bit. Maybe you should do that when you have a guy like Josh Allen. Maybe I thought things went pretty smooth last year when they kind of, James Cook got involved. Other people were getting involved. Defense was stepping up. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then just a couple other positional topics.
Okay, let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, first up on the list here, the NCAA pay-for-play model. I believe it was a lawsuit. Anyway, NCAA is going to settle, and they are going to pay their players. That's huge news, right? I think starting in 2020, fall of 2025. So it sucks for you if you're playing this year, right? You're going to miss out on the money at least 1 year. But yeah, revenue sharing model outlined last week's $2.8 billion antitrust settlement proposal from the NCAA. The five largest college conferences will allow schools to provide up to $21 million annually to athletes, or up to 22% of the average Power League school's annual revenue. Anyway, they're going to pay the players. I mean, there's a lot of questions about how and all that stuff. What I'm really interested in is how do you think this impacts college football, the draft, things like that? Any impacts at all?
It impacts the draft because you're going to start seeing guys stay in the in college football maybe a year or two longer than they normally would right after that sophomore junior year, that because when we saw this, I saw this with Michigan last year. Blake Corum is a perfect example where he was probably projected to be third, fourth round pick the year before, and he felt like, okay, well, we didn't win a title yet, so I'm just going to come back to Michigan. I'm going to make more money with NIL at Michigan than I am as a rookie in the NFL. So I think you're going to see the quality of college football get a little better. You're going to start to see teams hire GMs now. They're going to start hiring GMs to manage the cap, if you will. I'm not a big fan of the NCAA. It's always a money grab, and they got to get their part. But you got to look
brand new, right? There's a lot of weird stuff, things you don't think about in the meetings, right? You kind of have to go through it a few years to kind of get how is this different, right? Or what are we missing?
They've made a lot of money off the backs of these kids for a long time, and there's a give and take. I don't think you should be paying kids millions and millions of dollars to play football in college. You pay a kid what they're worth, but at some point there just has to be a balance. And we saw with NIL, things kind of got out of control, right? Not Dylan Raiola, the kid from who's going to go to Florida for $14 million. Dylan Raiola plays for Nebraska, but I forgot Jalen Rashada or something like that is what I'm thinking about. Florida promised him $14 million. Now they're in a lawsuit. So it's just stuff like that, man. Like you haven't played it down. You're expecting them to give you $14 million. Now Florida, if you contractually agreed to pay that money, then you should pay that money. But stuff like that. So I don't know. I think it's good for college football altogether.
Well, and the thing with agents come into play, right? Obviously the NCAA will take a whole new perspective, but it feels like with NIL probably staying in place, now there's pay from the NCAA. they're letting the snakes in a little bit, right? And
Yeah.
it's interesting because it's not like the pros, like they're 24 grown ass men, you're mature, right? When you're 18, you still don't really know.
Yeah.
There's a lot get taken advantage of, right? You have to really be around people you trust. And
That's a
there's
good point because I think when you look at like kids who grow up in poverty situations, right? Um, you know, them having money for the first time can go really, really bad if you're not putting in these schools need to start putting in protocols and training to show them how to manage their money. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
Antonio Brown, for instance, made over $200 million in his career. Now he filed bankruptcy. I mean, it's just,
right.
I mean, there's countless stories about those kind of things happening to these individuals. So, it's America, and that's what we've kind of done.
Yeah,
Just enterprise. It's free
right.
enterprise, and so it sucks, man. But look, if there's but there's also stories I think we'll see where kids actually use their platform for good, right? And it's already
Right.
happening. I just don't
Yes.
have
A lot of
anything
good
that I can
can come
point
out
to.
of it, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it just needs to be a balance, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I feel like it's time, right? It's time for
Mm,
something like this. They're probably a little late. This probably should have happened 10 to 15 years ago. But I feel like with the NCAA, football in general, um, there was a time where it made sense not to pay the players, right? It was regional. They couldn't televise a lot of games nationally, didn't have the contract deals in place. Um, so there really wasn't a lot of revenue per school, if you will,
right.
right? Because it wasn't really as popular. I feel like now, though, I mean, I think the Johnny Manziel documentary that said the school made $700 million in 3 seasons off Johnny Manziel.
Phew.
It's insane because it's national now. Like you can have superstars, that everybody knows, household names in college football, and I think that changes everything, right? Yeah, if you're making that kind of money, you got
Yeah,
to pay it.
and these institutions, they know that, and they've been pocketing this money for a long time, and they'll tell you stuff like, oh well, we're giving them an education, we're giving them room and board. Like, you look at how much college costs in 1980 versus how much college costs now. Like, come
Right?
on, man, like,
Yeah.
stop
And
it.
if you want to go to the best football programs, I mean, you got to pay the
Yeah.
crazy tuition, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's some good deals out there, but most of these programs are super expensive to
Yeah.
even attend the school,
You
right?
got you got the Big Ten leading in terms of gross revenue in college football. The SEC is next. I mean, so those are just two of the Power Four, right? So these TV deals and these endorsements and all this stuff, I mean, it's good for college football, right? The quality of it, I think it's going to help it a little bit. But you just wish that you just hope that you don't see a lot of sad stories from kids who blew all their money and now they don't have
Right.
an education and they're on the streets and things happen. So.
Yeah, it's also the last thought on this is just there was talk of the top 32 teams or maybe the top 3 conferences, I can't remember exactly, but leaving the NCAA and starting their own uh, football league basically. That would include the SEC,
Yeah.
right? And this is why all these teams are moving around. I wonder if that's still in play. Is this the NCAA's rebuttal to that? Cuz that's big time. Like the future of college football is really weird right now. Maybe probably for the better, right? From the
Mhm.
fans' perspective, but I mean from the NCAA's perspective, if that's on the table, you can't afford to lose that. That's gonna damage the reputation. So this feels a little bit like a desperation move, but again, I
It
don't know
is. No,
the
it
full
it
details of the
absolutely
lawsuit or
is a
anything.
desperation by NCAA, and you can't blame them. I mean, that's exactly what you have to do. It feels like they want to go down the road that's it doesn't have to be so hard for everyone. But the NCAA, man, they're crooked. They don't. I mean, I can go on. I could do a whole show about the NCAA,
Mhm.
but yeah, man, it's. I'm just not a fan. I'm just not a fan. I agree. I do think there needs to be a union in college football, like a collective
Yeah.
bargaining agreement, like the NFLPA and those types of things
Right, right.
to kind of help. I love what the NFL does with these players when they first get drafted. They have classes and seminars on
Mhm.
money management and how to conduct yourself in certain situations and business opportunities to look out for. So I would love for either the institutions themselves need to put these practices in place, or maybe use some of the boosts. I'm sure some schools do this, but use boosters and influencers who are successful to kind of big brother a student athlete to say, hey, this is how you
Mhm.
do it and stuff like that. I mean, I think there's multiple ways to skin a cat. I just hope that someone cares enough to start doing this stuff.
Right. And get those programs out there early, right?
Yep.
I'm sure they will, right? Because it can get ugly quick
Hmm.
if you don't. But anyway, yeah, I'll definitely be paying attention to that as it moves forward. But we'll see how it impacts the draft. You brought up a good point. More students will stay in college first going to the pros. We saw a couple players, stay another year this season. The receiver from Ohio State went back. We saw Marvin Harrison Jr. You kind of use it as leverage, like you know, if this team doesn't give me X, then I'm just going to stay in college, right? I think we'll see a lot more of that, especially when
Hmm.
you get the Caleb Williams of the world who are already superstars who have tons of leverage. That could come into play, in the upcoming drafts.
For sure.
All right. So sticking with Caleb Williams for a second, the Chicago Bears got selected for Hard Knocks today. And really what I want to discuss with this is just how do you think this impacts Caleb Williams' development, right? This is a big jump. You're the star at USC, right? You're probably more popular at USC than you will be in Chicago, at least initially, right? You go from the paradise to, okay, now we got to grind. Now I'm working with, grown ass men who have kids, right? It's hard, right? But now they're going to throw this in the mix, right? They have a young roster on offense, especially on
Yeah.
offense. So just kind of curious to get your thoughts on how you think this impacts Caleb Williams. His first training camp, right, is going to be nationally broadcast.
I mean, it's the big leagues now. USC is one thing, but the NFL and spotlight and no school, right? All your time, you're a professional football player now. And for the game itself, for fans, this is great. Like, you want to hear, if you're a Bears fan, you want to see that your team's on Hard Knocks. I, as an observer of Caleb Williams, I guess, like, could they have waited for something like this? Maybe Caleb Williams has laser focus, but man, you just want your guy to not have the distractions and to just where he can just kind of learn to be a pro and just do it the right way.
Right.
Because there was a lot of scrutiny about Caleb Williams and some of his off-field
Right.
decisions. So it's not like we're talking about a Josh Allen type. We're talking about a
Right.
guy who's been in the spotlight and who thrives in those moments and situations. We're talking about he's doing fashion week, he's painting his nails,
Right.
there's a
And he's in
lot of
LA,
scrutiny.
right?
Yeah, a
Super
lot of
famous in
scrutiny
LA.
involved
I
with
mean,
that.
it's
So I don't want to see it. I probably won't watch it, to be honest. I mean, I can't remember the last time I watched a Hard Knocks.
yeah. The Lions was interesting, but I mean, there's not many that interest me anymore. Right? They took a lot of it out. It used to be like you're
Yeah,
watching notable players get cut. That's interesting, but now they cut all that stuff out. It's not as
yeah.
in depth.
I don't want to see. I don't want to see it, man. And for all the things about Caleb Williams, I mean, things can turn out great, but why would you have things in your view that are potentially damaging to a young quarterback who hasn't played a down in the
Right.
NFL yet? Who's still? I mean, I'm glad if you look at the infrastructure of their team, they did go out and get some veterans and stuff like that to help. But at the same time, you just wish that, man, I hope
Right.
this kid can come in and thrive and be successful and be a leader of men, because that's what they're
Right.
paying him to do.
And he's already at a huge disadvantage, right? You're going to a losing franchise with a defensive head coach. Receiver room's young. If you think Keenan Allen's got something left, he probably does have a little bit, but I mean, there's injury history. Rome Odunze's in the same boat as Caleb Williams, right? It's like we're learning this thing. We don't know if, what's the speed of the game, right? You're figuring all that stuff out. But just to
Yeah.
you have to learn a playbook. I mean, on top of that, you're learning the town. And now you throw this on there. Now you have to answer all the questions all year long,
Yep.
regarding this. It's just something I wouldn't put this on my quarterback. Obviously, it's not the head coach's decision, right?
Right.
I would think they would all say no, but we are where we are.
It's I mean, yeah, so the head coach has to agree. Like, there has to be some sort of, I mean, unless the owner just says, you know what, you're doing Hard Knocks and the NFL is just,
Yeah.
it's just,
I'm not
it
really
just
sure how the
sucks. It
process goes,
sucks.
right?
It just sucks. I wouldn't want to do it, man.
Yeah, especially I'm not sure how the decision is made, but it's like the Jets have been on there 2 or 3 times, right? So there's like
Yeah.
repeats now, and it's like I personally think with the Jets, I think it does have an impact, right? I just feel like it's a distraction. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's an unnecessary distraction, but does it really impact the football? I don't know. Remains to be seen. I mean, they don't have any good teams on there, right? So,
Right.
I mean, Miami was good. They were on what last year? But anyway. So yeah, definitely pay attention to Caleb Williams. I mean, again, he has like that Trevor Lawrence thing where it's like his expectations are way too high, so you're never going to be good enough. Even if you come out and you're a decent starter, not good enough, we thought you were going to be great, right? We thought you were going to be the next Andrew Luck. And I think just this adds to the fuel to the fire for that.
It does, man. Like, but Lawrence was an NCAA champion. I think that's a little different, you know.
Yeah, fair.
Caleb Williams hasn't really done anything. He won a Heisman. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, he's a talented kid, no doubt.
yeah,
but leading a team against the college's best teams.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
seen that. Right.
Yeah.
Lawrence did have that. I agree. All right, couple more things before we get on the Bills here. Jalen Waddle reaches a 3-year deal with Miami. It was what 85 million.
Oof.
Yeah, 84.75 million extension. He joins Nico Collins, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Michael Pittman Jr., and Mike Evans, all getting new contracts. What do you think about Jalen Waddle? My personal thoughts on this is we're not real sure if Tua can get you over the hump. They're a good team, right? They proved that last year. Can you go in and win 2 playoff games? I got questions with the quarterback, right? So how do you help him? You bring back a really good receiver. So I think they're kind of forced to have this great receiving group to help the quarterback out. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great move for the Dolphins. I mean, they're paying him to be their number 1 wide receiver when Tyreek retires, and it's probably going to be in a year or 2, right? Based off of what he said. So I totally get the move. As far as, paying these wide receivers, I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. We've seen in the past 2-3 seasons that the ticket for wide receivers keeps going up, and the importance that they play in the offense keeps going up. So, I mean, it's a good move. If Waddle, he got his bag and he's going to get that guaranteed money for the Dolphins cap wise. I think it's going to lower his cap for this year. I haven't looked at the contract details, but I'm sure there's going to be some manipulation in there to where, his cap hit is lowered for the first couple years, and they're gonna give him a big signing bonus up front to kind of, so hey, good move for them. I mean, Waddle's a good player. You wish, the nagging injuries kind of suck, but I like it. Like you if you're a Dolphins fan, you got to be excited about it.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, Tyreek Hill's under contract, and things are going really well for Miami right now. Don't rock the boat too much, right? So I think you just have to pay the guy, and we'll see how that impacts them. Like they're going to pay Tua, right? And I think that's going to impact them salary cap wise, and we'll see kind of what their strategy is. But with that coaching staff, I think they can figure it out.
It's already impacting them because they had to let go of Christian Wilkins and some. And when they brought Jalen Ramsey in, I think that was the mistake right there, paying Jalen Ramsey that contract. I'm not saying Jalen Ramsey's not a good player, but it's like they're already paying for the Tua contract that hasn't even been worked out and signed yet. All right. And now you're going to pay Tua you're going to pay him $52 million a season. And in my opinion, he's not worth that. He's a good quarterback, but he's not worth that.
I think he'll get that, but is it worth it?
Yeah, that's
probably
the tough part.
And that's where you negotiate and say, well, we need an out in 1 year or 2 years.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm sure it's loaded with those type of things. But you look at the Miami defense, and who is it? Jalen Ramsey's the only guy they really have.
Javon Holland's good.
Javon Holland, is he still on his rookie deal? I think he's.
Yeah, they're gonna have to pay him, and
I know,
Jalen Phillips, who's coming off
rookie deal, right?
Injury, so we don't know what his impact's going to be. Yeah, I mean it's dicey for sure.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's definitely going to be fun to watch them. I actually predicted them to take a little step back from last year, but we'll save that for another day. All right, Pittsburgh to host 2026 NFL Draft. I feel like if Detroit and Pittsburgh can get a draft, can Buffalo get a draft? Also, would you go?
No.
Yeah, I always thought that too. Going to the draft seems fun, but I watch people on TV and I'm like, you're just standing there for how long? It's like, and then the Bills trade out and you don't even get to see them pick. So it's like,
if the draft was in Buffalo, I still wouldn't go. I don't
know.
It's gonna be
I'd have
cold.
to think about it. It'd be tough. It'd be tough for me to make that decision if it was in Buffalo, but I have no plans to go to any draft anywhere else. Right?
Man, yeah, Pittsburgh. I mean, that's not even a fun city.
I've never been.
They
already got good food.
Yeah, the food. I mean, it's like Rochester, Buffalo has great food.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh
and
has good
I feel like
food.
Buffalo with like a wing theme could be really fun.
Yeah, but a draft there, like,
Well, if the Bills keep picking at 30 and 28 and 29, it's different if it's the old Bills and you're in the top 10, right? That's fun.
yeah,
That might
yeah,
consider going for that.
yeah. I don't know, man. I'd have to pass on that. Now, if it was
Yeah,
in Denver, I'd go. If it was here, because Denver's a different. I mean, it might snow, but Denver's a different kind of
might snow
vibe.
here.
You
Yeah,
know, right?
yeah, it does
So
snow there in like May.
yeah. So I don't know,
Yeah,
man. I'd rather just watch it at home. Maybe I've reached that old age now where you're just like, you know what, man? Like, I'm straight. Like, I'll just stay at home and chill.
yeah, yeah.
I could drink my own beer, get my own
Right.
food,
Can
way
You don't have
cheaper.
to pay $8 for a beer. That's always
You don't
nice.
have to park for $30 and deal with all the
Right.
people. I mean, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's, you get a better view, you know what's going on. There's multiple channels to choose from at home. I feel like if you're at the draft, can you even see anything? You're really tracking what's going on. But again, I feel like since it's in Pittsburgh, I do feel like Buffalo's going to get a draft someday, and that's going to be tons of fun.
Oh yeah.
All right. So we haven't talked again. Like I said, last time we talked was a pre-draft. So I just wanted to get your general thoughts on the Bills roster, kind of where they're at. I know we have the post June 1st thing coming up. We'll talk about that here in a couple topics, but just what do you think about the Bills roster? Kind of what do you think about Keon Coleman in particular? I know we discussed all the receivers on this show. We
We
discussed all the
did.
receivers through text. I know you go heavy into the scouting process and you do a good job. So just wanted to see what you thought. Keon Coleman, I compared him to like a Josh Allen development type player. Like, sure, all the traits are there. It's going to take a year, going to take 2 years. So the expectation for him is, we want to see him be a number one guy or, extremely productive year 3.
Yeah.
Does that seem fair?
Yeah. And I do recall, I mean, I even said on the show, we talked in the chat where like Anthony was like, oh, the Bills aren't, Keon Coleman, and I said, hold on. I think you're not, look, he might not be the separator. We had and on the show, we had a whole long discussion about why I think Keon Coleman can win even before the Bills selected him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, I did say, it would help Keon if he had a number one wide receiver, but I think when you look at that in total, okay, there's Dalton Kincaid. Now he's not a wide receiver, and I am fully aware of that.
Right.
But you have a top target getter or a player that defenses are going to focus on.
Right.
I think
And
that's going to
you're
help him.
comfortable putting him out there in man coverage and he's winning, right?
Yeah.
That shows you the confidence they have in Kincaid.
And it doesn't mean that Keon can't improve his route running and breaking off a stem or in and out of cuts and stuff like that. I mean, he could, those things you can do. He has the athleticism, which is a good sign. He has the athleticism to do it, but it's a technique that he has to improve. And so I think when you look at Keon Coleman and you listen to him talk and you hear his football IQ and his character, I think that's the thing that got the Bills. It's kind of like Josh Allen all over again. They saw the intangibles, the football character. They saw and diagnosed him in terms of what was between the ears. And I think those are the kind of guys that they look for. Now, you look at Terrell Edmonds, Josh Allen are these like, crazy athletes. We kind of saw the Bills that this was a pick that kind of reminded me of that pick, of those two picks where they're getting, height, weight, speed, taking a risk on a guy that is high risk, high reward, right?
Yeah.
And so I think they lessened the risk by going in the second round, right? So it kind of takes some of the pressure off Keon not being a first round pick. And then he has some pieces in the offense where can kind of insulate him maybe for the first year or two. We'll see. I mean, maybe he can come out and just ball out this year. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That's the first time I've heard that. You take the pressure off Keon by trading back to the second. If he's a first round receiver, it's all over the news how the Bills need a receiver. The Bills need a receiver, right? With Diggs gone, there's a hole there, right? So I think that's a good point. Is the expectations are lowered because the Bills did trade back to get him. That's something I didn't consider.
And let me add this to it. You should be Bills fans. You should be happy the Bills got Keon Coleman, because now when you look at these contracts that are taking place in the NFL for wide receivers, it would be wise for the Bills to start investing in that position soon. Now, I mean, I think they're 2 years past overdue, but now they really need to start considering taking a wide receiver in the first or second round, third
Right.
round every single year, because now that cost is going to start. Jalen Waddle, that's a big
Yeah,
time
5
contract,
years, right.
right? So you
Well,
you
4
want to
years in the
stay,
second round, right? You have 4
yeah,
years with
yeah.
Keon,
I'm
the
not
rookie
saying you
deal.
treat them like running backs so they don't get second contracts, but what I'm trying to say is, like, maximize your potential on offense by taking a swing on wide receivers. You see Kansas City do it. They've done it. They've taken 3-4 wide receivers in the past few years. So I think the
Right.
Bills should be to take a page out of their book and say, hey, we need to start drafting wide receivers every single year,
Yeah.
whether it's
And Kansas
premium
City gets
pick.
them late too, right?
Yeah.
This is the first year they kinda went,
Well,
first
they
round
got
receiver.
second round. They got a couple second round picks of wide receiver. They took a first round receiver this year. Now, some didn't work out. Like Rashee Rice was good, but he's got legal issues now.
Mhm. Expected to miss, like, half the season.
Sterling Moore is his name. Sky Moore.
Sky Moore,
Sky
yep.
Moore. He
He improves
really
every year,
hasn't
seems like.
he hasn't really lived up to expectations. Who was a second round pick. So now, now you got a first round pick in Worthy. We'll see how it plays out, but at least they're taking shots at it, right? Like you have to start doing that now because Josh Allen's in that contract. You're gonna you pay that Oliver. We've seen the Bills. They're gonna have to pay Kincaid. Like Rousseau's up next. I mean, you better start drafting well. So I like the draft this year. I mean, there's nothing on paper that says, "Oh my God, look at what the Bills got." You hope that you can get 3 or 4 guys that are mainstays, right? Out of 10 picks, you want to at least get 4, right? That's 40%. I think that's a pretty good draft rate. If you get more, that's even better. But they got to start filling the depth of the roster now. So your thought, you asked me, what are my thoughts on the Bills roster? I think it's a good, solid roster. They don't have the depth that they once had. I think,
Mhm.
if they stay healthy, I think it's going to offset some of the depth problems. But if the injuries start coming, we're going to start seeing rookies starting to have to play a
Right.
lot of
Right,
time.
right.
Maybe sometimes it's good and other
Sometimes for the
times,
better, sometimes for the
right.
worse,
So
right.
we'll see. It depends on how well they draft it. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, so the receiver room overall, are you comfortable going into the season with what they have right now? Mac Hollins, Curtis Samuel. We'll see what kind of role Keon Coleman has. I expect it to be a kind of a red zone role at first, but I really think Samuel and Kincaid are going to be the top targets early on. Um, and Khalil Shakir, let's not forget about him.
Yeah.
I mean, are you comfortable with what they have right now?
I mean, I would always like a number 1 wide receiver. I mean, let's be honest. I was driving to work today and I was thinking, okay, like, and I told you guys this in the chat, and Anthony just vehemently disagreed with me. But I said, like,
Classic.
if you look at the Bills wide receiver room, they have a bottom third wide receiver room in the NFL. I'm not talking about Kincaid because he's a tight end and Dawson Knox. But you look at the depth of their weapons, they have a bottom third receiving core in the league, and that's it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, and you go back and look at okay, Brady had bottom third. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl with a bottom third receiver roster.
yeah. So
Not necessarily a negative, but I could be true. It depends what we're measuring, I would say. But yeah, I
I
can see
think
that.
they have a higher floor this year than they had last year. Right? They have a higher floor, but a much lower ceiling. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think the depth,
mhm.
like, you have a bunch of guys that are very similar, right? So the floor is good, but I mean, the ceiling, it ain't
Yeah.
high. You know what I'm saying? Because you
Right.
don't have that
Well,
number 1 receiver.
you go back and think of the Detroit Lions game on Thanksgiving where Bills were down, one throw to Stephon Diggs, you're in field goal range, right?
Right.
And there's so many examples of that. You know who to turn to when the times are tough, right? And I feel like that's going to take a while to develop with this new roster. It's not going to happen week 1, might not happen week 6. You know what I mean? Like, who's the guy you can really rely on in this room?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Man, you just hope Keon can be everything we think he could be. But I think it's gonna take time. Like you said earlier, it's gonna take time. Khalil Shakir, I mean, I think we don't talk about him enough. I think a lot of us are kind of wait and see. Like, he had a good year last year, but we don't know if we can really count on him to develop and be even better than he was last year, right? I think that's
Right.
where I'm at,
Well,
so I don't.
defenses figure you out too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, they start playing, better coverage, whether it's double, whether it's, somebody spying him the whole time. It gets more challenging as you go, but I think everyone is expecting Kincaid to make a jump from his rookie year to his
right,
sophomore year.
right.
But again, whether that's a decoy or whether that's production, remains to be seen because I do think defenses are going to start keying on him. You look at the roster, you're like, okay, I'm scared of this guy for
Oh
sure. I
yeah,
saw what he can do. Um, so yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how defenses adjust and attack the Bills.
yeah, and I like. Okay, so let me add this to it. I like what the Bills have done and got it. They got like really big guys at receiver. This is something that they tried to do when Josh Allen was a rookie,
Yeah,
where they got big guys, like go up and
yeah,
get it kind of guys.
too big.
Right? You see.
Calvin Benjamin, too big.
Mhm. I think we've seen a trend in the NFL where teams are getting smaller and faster, right? I love the fact that the Bills are one of those teams that say, you know what, like
Go against the grain.
we're
Yeah,
gonna get bigger and stronger, and
yeah,
if you're fast, that's gonna help too. So maybe I like the trend, I like the vision of
yeah.
where they're going with that. So that's positive. But again,
It's a good
it's one of
mix.
it is a good mix, and it's one of
Well, I
those
mean,
things. So
Matt
we'll see.
Collins is a bigger guy. I mean, obviously, we know Keon Coleman, but also Khalil Shakir. I think he can do some of that Cole Beasley type routes, and he's not a
Yeah,
real big guy. And Curtis Samuel, obviously, not a big guy either. So it's kind of a good mix compared to what they've had in the past. I mean, you go back to last year. Who's your big receiver? Is it Trent Sherfield? It's like they've all been kind of small the past few
yeah,
years.
yeah.
I
They
mean,
have
Gabe
been.
Davis, sure, he's a bigger guy, but he plays more like a speed guy. I can't remember too many plays of Gabe Davis using his body to make a catch. You know what I mean?
It's rare. It's rare. It's rare. They went from speedy separators to big, big guys who don't separate well necessarily. I mean, we're talking about how many receivers do the Bills have over 6'4", right? I could think of, well, you got Matt Collins, you got Keon Coleman, you got who else is over 6'4"? Um and then Tyrell,
Knox, no,
Justin Shorter's up there in height.
shorter. Yeah, he's 6'4",
And
6'5".
then
Yeah,
you look at Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid are big guys too. So
6'4", right?
yeah, so you're look. I mean, I like that, man. Like Josh Allen, 6'4", 6'5". I mean, these guys are big. Like, make it happen now. Like, you got guys that can go up and get it. Like people are sleeping on Matt Collins. Now, I'm not saying he's gonna be a 800-yard receiver, but what I do think though, and that's why I think that the floor is higher than it was last year because you have pros in there, and I think Josh Allen's gonna have to pivot to a different style of quarterback play. But I think a lot of this hinges on not Ken Dorsey, but Joe Brady. I do have a couple ideas that I think will happen in offense, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Oh,
And Josh
Claypool. I
Allen,
forgot
yeah,
Claypool.
yeah. So
John
John with the
Robert.
reminder.
Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
good call, John. Chase Claypool. See how that works out. Again, big guy doesn't play big, but we'll see how that. This is a different coaching staff for him. Fresh start. There's less distractions, than
Yeah.
Miami and Buffalo. See how that pays off for him. But
I don't have a
interested to
lot of
see
hope for
Chase Claypool.
Claypool though.
I don't. But again, it's somebody you
But
can see
hey,
the
take a
upside.
flyer.
You can see the
Low risk,
upside,
high reward,
right?
right?
Right. And this is a real quarterback in Buffalo, right? We'll see how that
Yeah.
maybe that pays off for him, maybe it doesn't, but it's
Yeah.
worth taking a look at. But yeah, back to your point. Josh Allen did mention um, you know, it's not his offense. I know Joe Brady said this is Josh Allen's offense. They are going to change some stuff up. Josh Allen
Right.
was out of the
Right.
Athletic or it's NFL Insiders. Um, and just mentioned there is new nuances to this offense where I need to learn new skills. And he said it's kind of getting away from the continuity they've had in the past few years of it's the same offense and the same skill sets. And now he has something to work towards, like better precision, better footwork
Yeah.
in the pocket, things like that. So maybe that is tying into the big receivers, right?
Right.
You got to be more precise with the ball, right? That Keon Coleman can win a one-on-one if he uses his body, but the ball's got to be in the right place. You can't really throw it out in front of him as much as you used to with Diggs. It's more just getting it up and away from the defender so they can go up and use his body. But yeah, it's a good point. All right, here we go. So post June 1st is Saturday. It gives the Bills the additional $10 million in cap space from the Trey White deal. When they release Trey White, the
Mhm.
10 million come June 1st. Do they need to address any position immediately? If so, what position? And then if not, what do you do with your 10 million? And I'll give you my thoughts when you after.
I would look at edge rusher. You know, if we can get another edge rusher, because you just don't know what you're going to get in Von Miller, right? And then you're banking on
Yeah.
Javon Solomon being something right out the gate.
Right.
AJ Epinesa is a six sack guy. I do think Rousseau is an 8 to 9 sack, maybe 10 on
Mhm.
occasion
You'd like to see
guy.
him get 10, but yeah.
You want to replace the production that Floyd had, right? So if they can go out and get a veteran pass rusher, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'd like to see another cornerback added to the roster.
They did add Smoot too. I'm not sure if he's a
Dwayne
to
Smoot,
match
but
Leonard Floyd's production, but there's somebody in the mix there.
yeah, it's a solid depth. But I think, man, if you can get a guy that can close out a game, I mean, this is just we don't know what Von Miller is at this point. And I don't think, right now the room, I don't think there's enough edge rush potential in the room to close out a game. I think, the defensive line has been one of the reasons why the Bills don't make it past the Chiefs in the divisional round is because the defensive line isn't productive enough. And I'm not just talking about the ends, but that's across the board. Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver and, like they got to start making plays in that game. Not in the regular season, which I appreciate, but like when it comes crunch
Mhm.
time, you got to have guys that can close it out. So I do like
Yeah.
where they are, but it's not complete. So if you can get that or a cornerback, the CB4 would be nice. I
Yeah.
mean, or if you're gonna press into Kyrie Elam, that'd be great too to see what you got there. But I think those are the two positions. And then maybe another running back with pass block potential. Right now, you don't
Yeah.
have that guy in the
Latavius
room.
Murray did a lot of that last year, right?
Right. So if you can get a guy that can come in and be that guy, that'd be great.
Yeah, so, what I hear is there's a lot of question marks, right? And that's kind of what my thought process was. You keep the 10 million, you save it for, hey, we had this plan for Kyrie Elam. It's not working out, right? We have to go get a corner. This isn't working out. Or, there's new safeties and this in the new defense here, right? Is somebody struggling? We had plans for Mike Edwards to be the starter, but it's he got injured. Maybe we have to go get a depth piece to fill that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Cole Bishop isn't ready. Same thing with Coleman. Maybe he's just not ready yet, needs to sit for a while. But we want to be competitive. So I think you save that $10 million for an insurance policy to say, what is our problem and what position do we need to fill?
Right.
I think you can do that in season. Is it Von Miller? Hey, Von Miller's just not, he's done. Right. He can't,
I don't
at
know.
this age, he just can't produce like he used to. They
Yeah.
need to find help.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's my thought. I saw a lot of stuff on Twitter. Everyone's saying, "Oh, receiver trade June 2nd." Like I just don't think it's going to go down that way.
Man.
And they're already shopping at the grocery store, and it's like, look, don't even know the problems.
I don't see it coming. I don't see it coming. Even if you went to the trade deadline and you said we want a receiver, okay, now you're gonna go get a receiver at the trade deadline. They have to come in now, and keep in mind the trade deadline is a week further this year. So now that's even less
Week
time.
9.
Yeah, to get a guy in and acclimated and stuff like that. So I really do think if there's a trade at the deadline, it's going to be on defense.
Rasul Douglas type, right?
Yeah.
I don't see receiver. Yeah. And Josh Allen will make up for a lot of the receiver deficiencies, right? You've seen all the great quarterbacks have done this, right? Rodgers did it with less. Brady did it for years with less.
Yeah.
I expect Josh to do the same, honestly.
Yeah,
it's a good room for him for what they're trying to do.
It's a good test to take for Josh Allen because now he has to be the point guard, right? And he's gonna have to really rely on the guys he has in the room. He doesn't have the pressure. Oh, I have a number one receiver. I have to get Diggs the ball 10 times a game and Gabe Davis get his targets and so forth. Now you have a complementary set of wide receivers, and it frees Josh Allen up to play quarterback in a way that, like, okay, I'm just going to take what the defense gives me. We saw some of those traits come out last year where Josh Allen was actually being efficient and taking what the defense gave him.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and the whole fan base lost their mind and was like, let Josh be Josh.
Yeah, that's true.
It
that
felt
is true.
it felt like he wasn't playing, to his max ability, which may have been true.
At
And the team's
times,
losing, and they were
at
losing
times.
games. So it was,
But you gotta, there's context involved, like not having the
yeah,
same coordinator, bringing in Joe Brady
right.
and all the things. So I think those things, but like if you're talking about like, okay, looking at the cast of characters that you have at wide receiver, Curtis Samuel and all those guys, like Curtis Samuel, Shakir are your route winners, right? They can create separation. Dalton Kincaid can do that as well. I think if the Bills and Joe Brady maybe focus more on tight formations and bunch formations to hide Keon Coleman, to where you could put him in different situations where he's not just on the outside trying to win, where you can get him in tight
He's not on an
alignments,
island.
right?
Yeah.
Outside the hash, but not outside the numbers, where he can kind of maneuver and be serve as a big slot, at different times to disguise certain things, the screen game and those kind of things. And then, you occasionally throw him the deep ball, the deep shot down the field, because he is 6'4" with great jumping ability,
kind
can
of a
snag a ball in the air.
Ball, right.
Right. So, I think that's what I think is the most underrated and dangerous thing about Joe Brady, Josh Allen's offense, because you have a Josh Allen who's coming into year 7 now, who you saw him learn how to take, you never go broke taking a profit. So we saw him start to do that. Now they're saying, okay, we may have to reset this year in some ways. All right. I think Brandon Beane's going to get Josh the talent and stuff he needs. But man, the fact that they got Kincaid last year was amazing. And Khalil Shakir to grow up a little bit was amazing. Now you get Keon Coleman, another guy with a lot of traits, things that you can build on. And if Joe, right? And if Joe Brady, and it's cheap, and if Joe Brady can channel to get him involved, and then I think Curtis Samuel had his best season in the NFL under Joe Brady. I think people don't really realize that or forgot about it. So I mean, Curtis Samuel's coming in, he knows the offense already. Now he's got to work on the chemistry with Josh Allen. So I do think this offense can produce. I think they could still be a top 5 offense.
And Curtis Samuel has seen a lot of football, right? He came into the league at 20 years old. He's been in the league 7 years and he's 27.
Yeah.
That's a lot of offenses, right? And one of those, he was with Joe Brady before as well. So we'll see if that carries over. I'm sure some stuff will. I'm sure a lot won't. But that's a leg up, right? So, he's the experienced guy in the room, and I think that's going to matter, right? And you keep hearing Josh Allen even mention this in the podcast as well. The NFL Insiders is Mac Hollins, right? Leader, right?
Yeah,
loves the leadership, loves the attitude. It's infectious. Actually, he might have mentioned it in his press conference, not the podcast. But yeah, that's what you want, right?
Point guard Josh Allen. That's what we need. We need Josh Allen to be Jason Kidd back in the day. Be that point guard, right? Magic Johnson.
Right. Oh, here we go. This leads into the next point here.
Go ahead.
This week, Joe Brady in the press conference, Brandon Beane mentioned it on the Athletic show. The Bills will remain competitive as long as the team has Josh Allen. Are the Bills back to putting too much on the shoulders of Josh Allen? I feel like last year, we know previous to last year, it was all Josh Allen, right? Making plays, running around, taking hits, right? Doing what he has to do to win. I thought last year was a lot more balanced, or at least they attempted that early in the season.
Yeah.
And then it was back to Josh, which you want. You want that late in the year, right? In playoffs and things like that. But are they going back to it's all going to be Josh all the time?
No, I don't think they can function that way, just because of the guys that they have on the roster. James Cook, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir. These are guys that like you can give a low to, and they can produce and show up in the big moment. So Josh Allen's always going to be Josh. He's always going to, kind of look for the big play and those kind of things, right? We need that 10 to 20% of the time. 80% of the time, 90% of the time, I need you to be a facilitator. Patrick Mahomes just went through this the past 2 seasons, where he had to learn, I can't live off these I can't live off these exciting plays all the time. Right. I have to do what's best for the team and work within the offense. So this is Josh Allen's turn to work within the offense. So a lot of pressure, or you mentioned too much on his shoulders. I mean, that's just the role of the quarterback, and you're making all that money. It just is what it is. Right. Like, because they pay you, they can't do certain things because your contract's kind of big.
Right. And if you've watched, I think there was the Netflix documentary with Pat Mahomes, he wants the deep ball so bad. He's always looking for it. Right. but he knows what's best for the teams. Take the check down. He knows how to read the defense. I feel like what the difference with Josh though is, and this has been his thing forever, is he's always trying to hit the home run, but he does hit them.
Yeah, he does.
in the craziest scenarios, right? And
You
at this
can't take
point,
that
year
from
7, I've watched so much Josh Allen that's like I don't think he's ever going to get rid of that.
Nope.
Right. So again, last year I think they attempted this, whether it was Josh or the offense or whatever, early in the season. He looked more like a pocket passer than the home run hitter.
Okay.
He's taking what they give him, but it just seemed
I'm gonna blow your mind with this.
It wasn't working for them, right?
Think about this. This just hit me. Tell me how you feel about this. Last year, we saw Josh Allen they asked him to be a facilitator with a lot of route running, quick separators, right? Now they're saying, I think they're pressing into, we still need you to do that, but we're going to give you the weapons that more suit you, the way you play. You are a big arm, strong, scrambling, dual threat quarterback that can throw the deep ball better than anybody in the league, if you ask me. So we're going to go give you big guys that can go up and get rebounds and get buckets, right? That's why you see guys like Keon Coleman, Matt Collins, Chase Claypool, Dalton Kincaid. I mean, so they're giving him big guys now to kind of, I think, to kind of press in maybe some of Josh Allen's strengths, because I think maybe he passed a test last year and earned their trust.
Right? Yeah,
that he can play with any offense. Yeah.
Go back and watch some Wyoming film. It's like he's 50-50 balls to the shortest kids on the field.
Yeah. Somehow, so I don't know. How does that hit you? What do you think about that?
No, I think it's a good point. I mean, it's, again, you don't have to hit the deep ball because a lot of these guys aren't fast, right? Curtis Samuel's kind of your only speed threat at this point.
MVS, we haven't even mentioned him in the show.
Oh, MVS, we haven't even mentioned him. That's a good point too. He's also
6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
God.
But yeah, I think there's a better mix than there has been in the receiver room in years past. Different skill sets, right? I feel like there's a lot of the same skill set. It's separation, right? Route running and separation. Think about Cole Beasley, Diggs, Gabe Davis ran a lot of option routes on the X. There's so many different tools to use that, yeah, I think you're right, where you could play to Josh's strengths because he wants to fit the ball in the tight windows, right?
Yeah.
And he's going to do it anyway, and this is why we have a lot of interceptions. But again, it works a lot more than it doesn't. So he's a unique talent in that way, so why not build around that? So I definitely see what you're saying, and I agree. Yeah. Can you put it all together?
I think they
remains
can.
To be seen.
And I think if you look at, projecting for the future now, okay, so next year, right, you can go get a speedy, deep threat, take the top off of defense, maybe you're getting a Khalil Shakir, but with a lot of more athleticism, right, and ability to take the top off of defense. So now you have a place for like an Xavier Worthy in your offense, right? Yeah. Then you'll have a full complement of wide receivers that can go out and get it. So I don't know, man. I like, the more we talk about this, I like the direction that they're taking it. Yeah. We'll see what happens. I mean, they haven't played it down yet, but just speculating, I'm trying to make it to where, like, let's not be so down on the receiving room, but let's be more positive and see the what could happen versus what's not gonna happen, right? Or the negativity.
Look at the upside, right? Yeah. What can they do? What can't they do, right? There's a lot they can do, but again, I think it's because we're so used to continuity as Bills fans.
Yeah, we are. We're spoiled.
Critical of this because it's like we've been spoiled. Like, that's a good word. But again, it's you have to see them implement the offense, right? It has to work. They have the tools. Can you call the right plays in the right scenarios? Is everyone on the same page? It's that type of stuff. And we might not see that till like midway through the season. It could be a bumpy start, I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of my initial thoughts on it. But anyway, it's a great topic. I'm sure we'll talk about, as did the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, as did, the Patriots with Tom Brady. Are you putting too much on your quarterback?
Right.
But, that's just the game we play, right? When you're a good quarterback like that, you should be making receivers better.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, couple more here. So, schedule came out too. We didn't have a chance to talk about this either, but we did it. We went through last week, 2 weeks ago, and went through each game, the schedule release, and it picked a win, picked a loss. Anthony had the Bills at 13 wins, like he does every year. He might have had 11 last year. He's going to beat me up for that later, but he's always very positive. I had him at 11 because you go through the schedule, it
Oh
seems a
yeah,
little bit lighter. There's winnable games in there. Really
yeah.
rely, what's the AFC East look like? Big question marks there. Where are you feeling? Are you around? Do you think the Bills can get to 11? Start there.
Yeah, I think 11 is I think that's where they'll end up. I mean, you're asking this team that lost so much continuity and players and guys that have been here for a long time to replace that production with new guys, rookies, and so forth. I think there's a learning curve, right? You got Joe Brady in his full first season as offensive coordinator. I think that matters too. You're gonna have a new defensive play caller. I think those are things to keep in consideration. So to me, like, I don't see the Bills as a Super Bowl contender, like, or a real Super Bowl contender. I want them to make the Super Bowl, and we'll see what happens. But I think their ceiling is a little bit lower in terms of the Super Bowl prospects for them to get there. So I really liken this year to a kind of reset year. Now you can win the Super Bowl in a reset year. You got Josh Allen as your quarterback, but I think we should lower our expectations just a little bit. So 13 wins is a little high for me. So I like to say 10 or 11 wins. I mean, you're gonna have those stupid games where the anomalies where they're just gonna lose. Some stupid shit happens and they're gonna lose, right? And then you're gonna have like losses to me. It's
Well,
really hard to predict the losses
yeah,
because you just
and I'll
never
give you
know
a chance
injuries,
to
so
look
forth.
at it. I'll tell you my losses while you're taking a look here. I had
Yeah.
losses to Baltimore, Miami, Kansas City, San Francisco, Detroit, and the Jets. Miami and the Jets were split, so the Bills won one and lost one.
Okay.
Those all felt reasonable losses to me.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. You're gonna split with the Jets. You're gonna split with the Dolphins.
Yep.
You're gonna lose to the Jaguars because we always do. You're gonna
I had them
lose.
win because motivation from last year, right? It was
Okay.
the worst game of the year, but I said that again and they lost. But that's my thoughts, right? So I went
Yeah.
with a win on that one.
Yeah. And then I think we pretty much typically always handle the Ravens, so I'm gonna say a win there. But I think we could lose to the Texans, okay? And I think the 49ers are gonna give us a hard time, and we could lose to the Chiefs. So those are my 6-7 games right there. Like, I would much rather us lose to the Chiefs in the regular season with the hopes of us beating them in the postseason. Like, I hope the Bills come out and shit the bed and they just look like, oh my God, like, I don't want injuries,
Flip
but
the script
look,
on them a little bit.
yeah, like just
nice.
look, don't even look like yourself. Let the Super Bowl champs just run all over you. Not let them, but if they get off and do their thing, great. But like, I want to see the Bills lose that game. I'll just be honest. So yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I think that Seattle game is a sneaky, tricky game at Seattle. 12th man. It's always
tough one.
pretty tough.
New coaching staff
new
there.
Coach.
A lot of questions. Feel like they're going to be a running team. Play good defense, but can Geno Smith outduel Josh Allen if Josh Allen has a good day?
But it's a running game in the defense that they're going to lean on, and it's the Bills are going on the West Coast, right? So that's always tough for teams. So I think again, you split with you split with the Jets, you split with the Dolphins. That's 2.
That's
right?
reasonable.
You lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. You could
gotta
lose to the
sweep the
49ers.
Patriots. And you're getting the Patriots, when the rookie quarterback's seen a lot of action. I think Drake May he's going to need more than 1 year, but can he squeak out a game? Late in the season, it's not impossible. Right?
Yeah, you lose to the Seattle Seahawks. That's 5. San Francisco could get you. You see what I'm saying? So, or the Bills could come out and just light the world on fire too.
Right.
That's also another possibility. But realistically, 11 wins.
So you're around 11. That felt right to me. I think Anthony had the Texans beating the Bills, but I thought that's going to be Josh Allen's best game at Houston. The Diggs, Josh Allen drama, and both players will have a great game in my opinion, but I think the quarterback impacts the game more.
Right? Yeah, but the Bills aren't solid in terms of cornerbacks 1 through 4, right? Like, so you're going to have Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell,
right?
These guys are good receivers. Like, they're going to stress the Bills defense.
Joe Mixon over there now as well.
I ain't worried about Joe Mixon.
Well, he just did with him with Damian Pierce. I think that's
it's a good room. It's a good room.
It's an option
but
for him.
I am going to the Rams, the December game. I already got tickets to that, so I will be going to that stadium. to see the Bills play there.
SoFi, yeah, that'd be cool.
That's going to be
probably
dope.
looking at the schedule, that's probably the best travel destination.
That's
right?
what I was thinking. Going to that game is going to be crazy. So I just want to see the stadium. Blake Corum is my guy. So I want to see him play, you know, former Michigan Wolverine. I want to see him play against my favorite team.
See the field or?
Huh?
He'll be on the field, right?
Yeah, he'll be on the field.
He's kind of a late round guy, but
mid-round,
third round
pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to play. Kyron Williams and him, you know, Kyron Williams, their bell cow, you know, number one back, but Blake will get some carries in there.
Yeah, that'll be a good experience, honestly, going to LA. I've never been to LA, so
LA sucks. Knowing what I know of UE, like you won't like it.
Yeah, I'm not the LA type of guy, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather go to Kansas than LA.
Yeah.
But to go to the stadium, I think it'd be cool. It's one of the premier stadiums in the country.
Yep.
All right, so you got you at 11 wins. I'm at 11 wins, so that's an easy conversation. I'll remind you of that later in the year. All right, a couple other topics we left over from last week that I want to ask you about.
Okay.
This was a good one. This is our cash and trash from last week, but I want to get your perspective on it. 3 or more rookies will have starting roles for the Bills by week 8. That's Keon Coleman. I mean, starters are a loose term, right?
Okay, I got 3 right here.
We'll stay impact.
I got 3. So Keon Coleman, Cedric Van Pran Granger.
Okay, you're going with the center. That's interesting.
Yep. Cole Bishop.
Okay. Ray Davis. He ain't gonna beat James.
He's not a starter because you know he's your number 2 running back.
Yeah, and that's really where the question is Van Pran.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the center. I think you're going to kick McGovern back to left guard, and then David Edwards is going to do what he did last year.
All right, that's actually my next one because with Connor McGovern taking over center, no other centers make the roster, right? So let's say Van Pran, he has to win the job here, right? What do you do with him if he doesn't? Because historically, they haven't carried a. I feel like Van Pran, he's only played center in high school, college, just the center. Can he play guard?
He can play guard.
Okay.
He has athleticism. He doesn't have long arms, shorter arms, and it works better at guard.
So you would keep him on the roster as a depth piece.
Absolutely. I think he's too talented to be, you know, he's good. I really, my prediction, I think he starts. I think week 1, he is your center. You know, just think about it, man. Like, you have a really, really solid opportunity. You got Aaron Cromer, who in my opinion is the top 2 offensive line coach in the league. You got a guy that played at Georgia, was a starter for 3 seasons in the SEC. Okay, I think that means something. Yep. That's on a championship caliber team, mind you. Yeah. And he's coming with Aaron Cromer, and then you know the Bills have an opportunity to start a guy as a rookie and let that be the guy for Josh Allen for the next 10 years, right? He could be that guy. Yeah. So Connor McGovern showed you that he could play guard and center, so he's kind of your chess piece there. But he played really well at guard last year, and we saw some of his run blocking technique kind of improve as the season went along. So I would love it if Cedric Van Pran Granger could be the center.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. If he comes up short, it gets weird, right?
Yeah.
And I think the big learning curve for him, certainly he's a captain, right? Smart guy, picking up the offensive line calls and touching the ball in every single play.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you comfortable going into the season with that? That's the big questions around him.
Right.
Now you might have more insight on this, but can a guard make those calls at the line? Gets a little weird because you're a little farther away from the right tackle. Let's say left guards making the calls. You know, communication's more challenging that way, but typically it's been the center for the Bills. It's been Mitch Morris.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're putting a lot on the shoulders of Van Pran early.
Well, yes, but also, you know, Georgia plays in a very pro style offense. So this is nothing that he ain't seen before. And then again, you know, Aaron Cromer can coach him up, right? So I think Josh will have to help him with some of the protections and stuff in the beginning. But Van Pran Granger is a smart, heady guy. So, and then, you know, Connor McGovern, who played center at Penn State, he played a little center with the Cowboys. Like you can lean on him for some guidance and some stability if needed. But yeah, man, I think you let the rook go in there and do his thing.
All right, fair. Yeah, that's good insight. Appreciate that. All right. Last topic here. Veteran quarterbacks that have made moves this year, most likely to reemerge. I got a list for you. Carson Wentz now with Kansas City, Jimmy Garoppolo with the Rams, Sam Darnold with Minnesota, Gardner Minshew with Las Vegas, Jameis Winston with Cleveland, Marcus Mariota with Washington, Josh Dobbs with San Francisco, Tyrod Taylor with the Jets, Zach Wilson with Denver, Drew Lock with the Giants. Which one of these guys is most likely to reemerge in their career, in your opinion? If you need the list again, let me know.
Oh man.
Thought this was a good topic because a lot of shuffling, right? These are all backups.
Reemerge.
They're all backups, I think. Maybe Sam Darnold might start early, but
Jimmy Garoppolo, I would pick Jimmy Garoppolo just because the ceiling isn't high, but the floor is good enough to be a bottom third starter, right? Like he's, he just the problem with Jimmy G, he's always injured, right? But so I would say he has
you
upside.
think he could get a starting role next year?
He could. I think,
Most likely compared to the other ones.
Right. Yeah, I would say him. Zach Wilson, no.
No, he's
I
done.
mean, unless Bo Nix is just trash. Right.
A fun one is Jameis Winston in Cleveland, right? Deshaun Watson, there's a lot of pressure
right.
on Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. I mean, this
if it doesn't work out. I mean, Jameis Winston, he can throw the ball, right? He's got a big arm.
Look what they did with Flacco last year.
Right.
Now you got Ken Dorsey as your OC. Yeah, man. Yeah. I think he's a candidate too.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Anthony says Tyrod.
Tyrod. Well, he might get the most playing time, right? Backing up Aaron Rodgers.
Tyrod, as he like to say. Tyrod.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for joining. I mean, that's all the topics I had. Maybe tell everybody where they can find you these days.
Man, I'm over at Buffalo Fan Base, just chilling, enjoying the off season, man. Part of me is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start, the grind again every week, and I'm like, just I'm not ready yet, So when I'm ready, definitely before when training at the latest training camp, but I might start getting back in there now. I love coming on as a guest and just hanging out and talking ball. But I've been just really kind of just chilling, relaxing, kind of really thinking through some of my processes in terms of scouting, in terms of what I think this team can look like, maybe looking at some things to rebrand, or maybe, kind of come up with some different things to kind of maybe put a different side of content out there, Buffalo Bills related, maybe have a more singular focus. So I've been kind of going through that kind of stuff, but yeah, I mean, I'm just chilling right now.
Process.
Yeah, it is. It is for sure.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I appreciate coming on the show. Like I said, you're always welcome here, and look forward to getting you on when Anthony's here as well. So
I gotta give him shit.
You guys can scream at each other over Matt Milano's contract or something.
Throw the challenge flag.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for tuning in with us. As we say every week, you can find us Built in Buffalo Thursday, 7:30 Eastern. We'll be here all off season. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.